These freaky deaky looking things are called Banksia Pods, or Banksia Nuts. They're the seed pod of a tree that grows somewhere in Australia. I posted a previous video of how I turned these three little boxes out of them. This time around I'm going to try two different things. First, I'm going to make some interesting pens. I took one of these pods, cut it in half, and then cut off one of the halves into 4/4. I then squared them up and filled the holes with an epoxy. Then I drilled a hole lengthwise and glued in a brass pen blank. The epoxy is tinted purple for some interesting contrast and also so you don't see the brass pen blank. Inevitably, there's some voids that the epoxy didn't reach, so I need to keep filling them in as I go. It's getting close. After sanding it and then applying a finish, the pen is ready to assemble. There are hundreds and hundreds of pen kits to choose from. Some have an upper and a lower barrel, but for this project I like a single unbroken barrel. And here it is. I've made a bunch of these and everyone loves the irregular purple features and the swirling grain. I'm not sure, but I always thought the pattern looked a little bit like olive loaf. Anyway, now I've got the rest of this pod and some leftover ends from earlier projects. I have an idea for something to make out of them that really shows off their interesting cross sections. With the bandsaw, I'm going to slice them into 1/4 inch thick cookies. As I get closer to the end, the safest way to do this is to glue it to a block of wood. I'm going to pour an epoxy onto this, so first I glued on a temporary mold using some strips of melamine. The outer parts of the Banksia pod have a lot of this loose fuzzy material that will trap air and leave a lot of bubbles under the epoxy. So first I use this solvent to make a real thin coat of epoxy that can soak in and prime everything. This is a 2-part tabletop epoxy from Super Clear. I'm going to dye it blue, and in retrospect I wish I'd used a lot less of the dye so that it would be a little more translucent. I'm trying to get all the epoxy down into the little nooks and crannies here. Then a heat gun or a blowtorch makes all the little bubbles rise to the surface and pop. After a few days it's fully cured and I can remove the temporary mold. Here's what we have so far. Now I just need to sand it down and expose the Banksia pod cookies. This belt sander is just taking way too long, plus the dust is going everywhere. So I took it over to the big boy sander. If nothing else, it's got much better dust collection. As usual, there's some little voids that need to be filled in. Then a lot more sanding and I applied a shellac finish. Here's the finished product. I added a small frame of walnut. I don't know what to think of it. Is it beautiful? Is it tacky? I'm honestly not sure, but looking forward to your comments below.